So I just started. So I started posting things on Instagram that I was baking.
Yeah.
And then I got an order. And I got an order from someone who was sending cookies to Bob Dylan. And so I was like, oh, I guess this is legitimate. Like, I need to go get a business license and start this because I definitely want to sell cookies to go to Bob Dylan. So,
yeah. And just to be clear, they asked you to send cookies to Bob Dylan. You didn't correct them at that moment about the macarons.
No.
Macarons. That was the voice of Raina Shults. Raina is part of our Leaper series where we spotlight people who are new to entrepreneurship. Raina has brought a unique product and sales strategy to the world of macarons. Raina took a side hustle and has turned it into a livelihood for her family, and with her plans for the future, it might grow to be much, much more. Welcome to 40 by 45, the West Tennessee Business Podcast, sponsored by Tennessee Industrial Printing. Raina, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Raina, unlike other guests in our show who've been in business for a really long time, you're relatively new to this. How long have you been doing this?
So what's unique about my situation is that I started out a little bit ago, back in 2018 when I was a stay-at-home mom. But it hasn't been until about the past year and a half that it has been a full-time job, support of our family, and a full gig.
So you make, no, I'm just going to lean into this and you can correct me. Okay. All right, here we go. So at Sprinkle Me Sugar, you make macarons.
Macarons. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next question is macaron, which is different than a macaroon.
Yes.
Which is different than a Macron.
Yes.
Because I think the Macron was the president of France.
Yes.
Okay. What's the difference between a macaron and a macaroon?
So macaroon is traditionally, it's just like those coconut cookies. Have you had them?
Okay, yes.
It's like made with egg white and coconut.
Okay.
A macaron is made with almond flour and egg white. So it's an almond flour meringue. And then it's actually a confection. It's not a cookie. Lots of people will call them cookies.
Oh.
They're confections. So it's more of like a patisserie, and it's filled with anything. It really takes on the flavor of whatever you fill it with. So you can fill it with ganaches, buttercreams, sauces, curds. It's endless. And then what's really cool is that you have multi-texture, multi-flavors. So you're going to start with like a crunchy shell. It's going to give way to chewiness, and then it's going to begin to melt in your mouth. And with that, you have all these layers of flavor. So I hope that explains.
No, that's a pretty complex thing. And it's interesting that you said most people compare them to cookies, but they're really more of a pastry.
I think that's just because from Americans, it looks like it's round and it's sweet.
And it's somewhat smallish. Yeah.
But it's just something completely different.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it serves a different purpose because it's a little bit more complex. It's a full flavor experience, a sensory experience, versus a cookie might just be like a little bit of a sugar high. This is more of a like gourmet experience.
Okay, take that, cookies. So how did you decide to make macarons?
So I went on a wedding anniversary trip to Paris, and that's where we found out we were pregnant with our twins, and we fell in love with French macarons. And honestly, all the patisserie there. And so we found out we were pregnant. We got home. We found out we were having twins. I was actually working at Nordstrom as a Chanel manager, and honestly, they were born about 2 months early, and so it was a really bad flu year, and just decided to stay at home with them, to be with them so they didn't have to go to daycare or anything like that. And at that time, I watched a ton of Great British Baking Show.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just wanted to bring a little bit of that home. Like, it was hard to find those macarons in Nashville at the time. Like, there was a couple places, but they just didn't taste the same as the ones we had in Paris. And so I decided to start baking. And it was really honestly like a form of therapy for me at the time because I was dealing with severe postpartum depression and anxiety. I had these like little fragile preemie babies I was taking care of around the clock, and it just gave me a little bit, and I just quit my career, gave me something to pour myself into for my family and friends. And everything kind of evolved from that. I wanted to take on the challenge. I knew macarons were challenging to bake, and so I watched a ton of YouTube videos, and through trial and error and lots of practice, learned how to make them.
And at what point does it turn into a business? So you were doing it with family and friends and stuff. And when did you decide I'm going to start selling these things? Yeah,
I think everyone faces this thing when they do something as a hobby where their family and friends are like, you should go into business. Everyone wants to buy this. And it's either a terrible idea or it's a really good idea. And it's not always a terrible idea, but so I just started. So I started posting things on Instagram that I was baking. And then I got an order. And I got an order from someone who was sending cookies to Bob Dylan. And so I was like, oh, I guess this is legitimate. Like, I need to go get a business license and start this because I definitely want to sell cookies to go to Bob Dylan. So, it kind of like started from there. And then just started baking everything from home. Honestly, at that point, people were like, can you bake me this? And I was like, sure. Can you bake me this wedding cake? Sure. And I did wedding cakes, birthday cakes, cupcakes, decorated sugar cookies, and really burned myself out.
And just to be clear, they asked you to send cookies to Bob Dylan. You didn't correct them at that moment about the macarons.
No.
Macarons. Preparing for this, I spoke to Lisa Garner, who's a fan of yours.
I'm a big fan of hers.
Lisa is the executive director of the Co. and also owns a small business in town, Garner Blue. So I want to play that clip and see how you respond, okay?
Okay.
So right off the bat, honestly, I was like, this woman is kind of like magical. Like she kind of instantly sort of captivates you because she's so passionate about what she's doing with macarons and with the experience that she's creating with what she wants to do. And so I just kind of remember instantly being like, she's going to be amazing for this space. I'm so excited about her being at the local.
You know, what is it that you're so passionate about doing these and making these special?
I just want to spread beauty and I want to spread joy to people. And I think I've loved baking my entire life. And I think what captivated me as a child was that you could just take these ordinary ingredients and make them into something that brought someone a little bit of joy, you know? And for me, I think what captivated me so much about macarons is that they're not just this cheap, sweet treat, you know, that we shovel out and can mass produce. It's something more than that. It makes you kind of pause and you can make them really special. And to me, it's kind of like, it's art. It's like a love language or art. It's a way to take people and help them be present because we're always just going and busy and going to the next thing and just connecting them to humanity, connecting them to each other. It's something people can share with their families and talk about the flavors. They can share with their kids and have a special moment. And to me, I think that's the magic of any art that we create or anything that we can do is to try to bring a little bit of joy and connection in this world. So
Direct Shred is a family-owned and operated commercial and residential shredding company based in Jackson, but serving all of West Tennessee and Memphis. If you need secure, certified, document, or hard drive destruction, contact Direct Shred today at directshred.com. Haven Insurance Partners is a locally owned independent insurance agency. Haven takes your risks, whether personal, commercial, health, or life, and approaches many different insurance companies on your behalf. This allows them to find different coverages and price points for you. At Haven, they believe you deserve options, and they want to help you explore those. Visit haveninsurance.com to find better coverage today. Special thanks to our season sponsor, Tennessee Industrial Printing. Tell me about the perfect macaron.
There is no such thing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as perfection with macarons.
Okay.
And I think that is the same way with like any art. There's no such thing as perfection. There's just constantly getting better, but every single one is flawed in some way, and that's part of what makes them beautiful. Like, you can try to achieve as much perfection as you want, but they're so finicky and difficult. They're going to have little tiny, things about them, but that's what makes them so beautiful.
Then help me understand how do I know that I'm eating a good one?
I think the ones that are just like homemade, that have delicious flavors, those are the good ones. I mean, the ones that you're going to get like frozen or like at TJ Maxx, I don't know how those things are shelf-stable. Those aren't going to be the good ones. Yeah. But I think if they're baked with love and they're baked fresh, they're going to be delicious. So.
Now, as you started it, you said you had gone from doing all sorts of baking stuff and you kind of burnt out. What was the course of things that brought you back into it?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy, wild ride story. And I feel like, not to get overly spiritual, but I definitely feel like it was like God's hand redirecting my life and my path. So in the midst of COVID, we were expecting our third son, and I was like, this is the perfect time to shut this down because I am overwhelmed and super stressed out by all of it. And so I took a break, and with 3 little ones, 3 under 3, I was, much needed. Well, it wasn't really a break, but it was like focusing on my kids. And we decided to move back to Jackson for a business opportunity for my husband. And we would be closer to family. We were like, there were so many things and our pros, cons of, we'll come back. And it had been about 13 years that we had been in the Middle Tennessee area, and we decided to move back. And about a couple weeks after we closed on our house, my husband called me and was like, I was just let go. And I was like, you're kidding. I thought it was a joke. He's like, no, I'm on my way home. And honestly, it felt like everything was crumbling. And I just try not to take too much time to like wallow in that. Like, I'm not like a person. I'm like, what can we control? And I had felt, this is so, sorry if I'm getting like overly spiritual.
No.
I had felt probably a week before that. I have not told. I've only told a couple people this. So I can't believe I'm saying this on the podcast. But you know how, I don't know if it's your intuition or if it's God speaking into your heart or what, but you feel something inside of yourself. I had felt a couple days before that as I was driving down the road. You're going to think I'm crazy. I felt like, you're going to restart Sprinkle Me Sugar. And, I mentioned it to Philip when I'd gotten home. And, it's one of those things where you say it, but you're like, it's kind of on the back burner and you're procrastinating. And I knew when he told me he was let go, that was like God being like, you're doing it now. And so I went immediately to the courthouse and I got my business license. And I had always mulled over my head. I was like, I'm never restarting Sprinkle My Sugar. I'm never doing it again. I was so burnt out. But I knew if I was going to do it again, I would focus on things completely differently. I would focus on one thing. I would say no more. I wouldn't do all the cakes. I would focus on the thing that brought me joy. And that was doing macarons. That was, coming up with unique flavor combinations. It's what people loved the most that I made. And so that's what I did. And I mean, it was within 2 days, I was hustling macarons out to people in our neighborhood and posting it on the subdivision page. And I mean, it was within a month, I was at the local sharing a space with Earthborn. It has been nonstop. So it was our only path. And that's something that I think has made all the difference. And this is something I believe in, is that if you're going to go after something, you have to burn the boats. I say that all the time. Like, burn the boats. There is no going back. Like, you go full force in it or it's not going to work. It's like there's no turning back. Like Napoleon with his troops, he would just, like, if they turn back, they're all dead. Like, it's like, you go forward. Like, you cannot. And I think it was kind of like the ground coming up from beneath our feet. It was like, I have to do this to support my family, and we're going to sell macarons because it's the one thing I can do right now in this situation. And honestly, I just feel incredibly blessed that I get to do this every day, that I get to do this in a place where I grew up in Jackson, to be able to build a business, something that is something I enjoy and something that brings other people joy. I mean, wow, what a tremendous blessing that I wouldn't have even known if something crazy, if God didn't just force me into that position, essentially.
And the prior experience that you had allowed you to know that this is the thing that you you needed to be able to focus on this one
and
part.
It's like how it works. It feels like, because it's like all of that is leading up. Like it wasn't the time then, but it is the time now.
Yeah. Tennessee Industrial Printing is West Tennessee's commercial printer. They have built their reputation on delivering on time, on budget, and on target. Tennessee Industrial Printing delivers on complex printing projects, mailing projects, and fulfillment services. With a fleet of presses, they have positioned themselves to handle small and large volume jobs. I've been able to work with tips with many of my clients' projects, and they have delivered every time. Wayne and his team have continuously invested to ensure that they are an efficient and effective option for commercial printing. Start your next project at tipsprints.com. How do you think you have grown? So when did you dive in hardcore on Sprinkle Me Sugar the second time? About how long ago was that?
I started hustling macarons in our neighborhood April of 2023.
Okay. So how do you feel like in the last year and a half, how do you feel like you've grown and changed as a businesswoman?
I think that I've had like I know like it feels like everything's super fast paced, but I feel like there have been highs and lows, and it's just about honing my discipline as a business person, as just knowing what my values are, knowing what my principles are, knowing what my goals are for the business, and just like every single day showing up. And I think that's the most important part, is that I truly believe you choose your hard in life, and that, going to a 9-to-5 can be hard. What I did at Nordstrom was hard. Being a waitress was hard. Going to school and getting a degree is hard. Anything you choose in life is and anything worthwhile is going to be hard. And so I would rather choose my hard. And so I think it has helped me like develop my discipline and rhythms, and helped me honestly dream bigger than I've ever dreamed before.
I have another clip from Lisa.
Okay.
So the thing that stands out to me the most is that Raina, she's seeking opportunities, but then she takes them when they're offered to her, and she makes the most of them. So I think that for so many business owners that I talk to, they are constantly looking for great opportunities, and we all are. But I think that a lot of people don't follow through. I think they don't actually apply for the thing. And then I think when they do, they try to give it their best, but she goes for it. And she takes the most from opportunities that are offered to her, which is what we all want, who are offering opportunities to people. And she really learns from them and grows. And so I've just been so impressed by Raina in the short time that I've known her.
She gave me a list of some, but I'd love to ask you, what are some of the opportunities? I think we're sitting one right now. What are some of the opportunities that you have seen as a new business owner that you've been able to take advantage of?
The first one was when Downtown Jackson asked me to just do a pop-up at the local. And honestly, it didn't go as well as I had wanted it to, but I could see what things I could change. And I was like, oh, wow, I should have had more signage. I could have gotten the word out better. After that, they asked if I could share space. And I was like, absolutely.
Why don't you tell people what the local is?
The local is incredible. It is these little shops in downtown Jackson. There's 3 of them, and they're like micro retail spaces. So they offer low rent to someone starting out and give you this ability to be a shop, like to actually do the thing and to build it. And I just think that's incredible, because it's really hard sometimes. There are a lot of barriers to entry, and this opens it up to a lot of people and gives them the ability to build momentum, build belief in themselves in order to do the thing.
You were sharing a space at the local, which we're at the local right now, which is in downtown Jackson. There's traffic driving by right outside the window. But you were sharing a space with Earthborn, but I think this is just your spot now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So talk to me about moving and having your own spot at the local, and what does that mean?
Yeah. So Earthborn he was a woodworker, and so he was working out of the Co. And both of us decided we would go in on one of these spaces to help them basically had someone leaving early, and to fill that space, I honestly would not have known I could even do it on my own if I hadn't done that for that. It was only 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And the sales were well over what I expected, probably 10 times what I expected. And I was like, well, then I can definitely be in one of these spaces by myself.
Yeah.
And so I knew one of the spaces had a sink and had that kitchen set up. And so that's the one I wanted. And so when it became available, I mean, I was very clear. I was like, I want that spot because I wanted to be able to serve tea and do tea parties. So yeah. And then I have now been in this spot a little over a year, about a year and a few months.
And that's really enabled you to grow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Because it gives, again, what's so awesome about this space, and there's spaces like this in Nashville too, and I'd seen them in like the streets of Fatherland. I had seen those spaces when we lived in Nashville. I was like, oh, I've already seen micro retail spaces and I've seen them thriving. And so that's an incredible opportunity. And yeah, so it helps us to grow so much, like, and get the word out about, I mean, otherwise I feel like I would have been stuck just trying to hustle macarons out of our subdivision still, so it really did open up so much for us.
And then there's been some other opportunities that you've pursued.
Yeah. So around the same time that I was sharing that space with Earthborn, I applied for Builders and Backers, which is an accelerator program with a grant. And it's really about helping you figure out a problem and solve it. And so for me, a big problem with food-based businesses is high cost. And so how do you sell and lower your costs? And the biggest expense is going to be labor, and having someone physically present selling your product. And so, I've seen cupcake vending machines and things like that. And I thought, cupcakes actually, I mean, I think it's a great idea, but they get stale pretty quickly and they have to be baked that day. And so being in a vending machine, I mean, it can only be viable for so long, right? Like it's going to have to be replenished every day. Macarons stay fresh for a really long time. That's what's really cool about them. They stay fresh for 5 to 7 days in the refrigerator because they're made with almond flour and the fillings, and they are perfect. In 5 to 7 days, they still taste just as delicious. And the thing about them also, you can't eat them right after they're baked. They have to rest for 24 hours in the refrigerator. So I was like, they're perfect for selling out of like a refrigerated vending machine. Yeah. And so I got accepted into that program. I worked with mentors that helped guide me, working through all the problems that would come up, and then got the seed money to fund creating the first macaron vending machine in the U.S. And then we opened...
the first one in the United States. Yes. Yep. You opened the first macaron vending machine in the United States.
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And where is it at?
It's at Catbird Studios.
Which is also here in Jackson.
It's in Jackson.
Yeah. So just mechanically, I cut you off there. So if you want to pick up where you were, but I have questions about the vending machine.
Yeah.
Just mechanically, how often do you fill it? Like, did you have to build a vending machine from scratch?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like those were all the problems I had to work through. I will tell you, I felt like I wasn't going to be able to use the grant. It was like literally days before the deadline. And I was like, well, I had my eyes on a certain vending machine that I was going to get secondhand. They couldn't unlock the vending machine. They could not unlock the software. And they were like, we've already been in contact with the manufacturer in China. We cannot unlock the machine, so we can't sell it to you. It was like perfectly in my budget. And I'm like, well, I guess this isn't happening. Like, I don't know what to do. And days before the deadline ended, I found Byte vending machines. They're a smart fridge. And because I kept thinking of if I just could have a fridge that locked, but how would the lock work? So they have like these vending fridges, and they use RFID technology. So they have tags that basically are scanned, and they know what's taken out of the machine. So people can unlock the machine with their credit card, opens up, anything they take out, kind of like the Amazon store, it will ring them up, and then it sends them a receipt. And I'm like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But then I was also like, I don't want it to just be a fridge, because the whole thing about Sprinkle Me Sugar is we want an experience. We want people to be able to come here, and it's a moment, right? It's a special moment out of their day. It's not just going to a fridge and getting macarons. So that's where Earthborn kind of comes back in again. Bryce with Earthborn Goods was like, when we were sharing that space, I was like talking about all my ideas. I was in that program with and telling him about it while we were there. And he's like, I could build an encasement for it. So I drew out plans of what I want it to look like. I want it to feel like a Parisian bakery. I want it to have that feeling, that old world, like European experience, be very feminine, and then also marry it with this like cutting edge technology we were using. And so, yeah, he did it. He put it together. I mean, he did it within a couple of days. I was nervous if it was going to happen, but it did. And he pulled it through and it looked incredible. And we launched that last January.
That's wild. You might not know that I started my educational journey at a community college after high school, which allowed me to have some time to make decisions for my future and save money on gen ed classes. Jackson State Community College provides that opportunity and many others for students in West Tennessee. Visit jscc.edu to see all of their educational and career building opportunities. ATA is a leading advisory and tax accounting firm. From tax planning and client accounting services to advisory and assurance, ATA has got you covered. With locations in Jackson, Dyersburg, Union City, Milan, Paris, Memphis, and Henderson, and more outside of West Tennessee, they have an expert nearby to support you. As ATA says, let's amplify your business together. Contact them today at ata.net. Special thanks to our season sponsor, Tennessee Industrial Printing. You've talked a couple times about how macarons can take lots of different flavors and stuff. How do you keep that relevant to people? Because like, do you always have the same ones on the menu? How do you keep the business? Is that what you do? You keep the same ones? Do you change it out? How do you do that?
Yeah, we have a theme every single month. So we do a theme and we have macarons for that theme. So the upcoming theme is going to be fairy tales. And so each macaron is based on a fairy tale. And then we also do weeklies on top of that, because I found that there was a lot of flavors that might be like classic ones that I did that didn't fit with the theme. And people will be like, when are you going to do this flavor again? And I'm like, I don't know. And so that was a great way. So we always have a dozen flavors, but they're always changing. So we have, those core collection flavors, the 6 that are going to be based on a theme for the month. And then we have 6 weeklies that rotate every week.
Have you seen a lot of variation in what people like? Or are they pretty accepting of everything that you make? What's
really cool is that I think people are mostly open. They're like super open to the new experience. I think for a lot, now not everyone, lots of people knew about what macarons were and they were excited that there was a place where they could come get them baked, like bakery fresh here. But for a lot of people, it's a completely new experience too. And they're super open. And I think a lot of people will put us in a box as Southerners and be like, people aren't going to like anything but this or that, pretty basic flavors. And that is not the case. I think we all love an experience. And I think if you present something really delicious and you already have trust built with them, they're going to try new things.
Yeah. And then when I came in here, I noticed, you have candles and tea and all that. So thinking about what's your thought process on like rounding out that retail experience?
Yeah, right now I think I had more retail before. I kind of limited it. I like that I can experiment with it here at the local. Our candle is like one of our top selling items because it's a signature scent made with another local maker. Decor by Heron makes it, and it smells like French macaron. It's exclusive to Sprinkle Me Sugar. And I mean, people are crazy about it. They come in and buy a ton of them. It's been really, really awesome. We love to do the tea because La Doury in Paris is a tea house, and love the history of that. Love the history of tea houses being a place where really suffragettes met when women couldn't meet in public without a chaperone. And it was one of the few places women could run as a business. And I don't think a lot of people know that, but I think it's super cool.
Yeah.
And tea and macarons are perfect because tea makes you sit and savor, whereas sometimes caffeine's about speeding it up. And tea is more of like an experience you have to be in the moment for and you have to savor. And it's a little bit more delicate than coffee. And I think that pairs really nicely with macarons.
Yeah. Let's do a little lightning round here. Okay. There might be a sound effect here or something.
Oh, no.
All right. What are 3 business books that you would recommend to someone and why?
Okay. E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber,
yeah,
which
classic.
is classic. And I'm like trying to pick what to do here. I don't agree with everything, but I think it's a good core fundamental book for someone to get
I
in
will
business.
also add my take. I'm not, you were writing or an English major. I was not. I think it's a really boring read, but the principles are phenomenal.
They're solid. They're solid for anyone getting into business. I feel like it's a solid one. For someone getting into baking business, I love Sweet Success by Candace Nelson. She's definitely like one of my like mentors I look up to. And then this one, Linchpin by Seth Godin.
Yeah.
I love that book.
I'm a Seth Godin fanboy.
Oh man, me too.
Everything
Fangirl.
that he's written,
yeah, he's one of my favorites. So
Linchpin's a great one. He has a new one that just came out called A Strategy, I think it's what it's
no,
called.
just bought it.
It's on my. It'll be the first quarter read for me. All right. When are you having the most fun in business?
When I'm building. So I feel like just the creation process. I think that's what's really cool about being an entrepreneur is the creation process. And so it could be either coming up with new flavors or building the business itself and dreaming what next steps.
You have the most fun when you're building. I do too. That's what I get really excited about, starting something new and figuring it out, building the future. But you're in a retail. It's a bakery. There's a lot of routine, a lot of things that you have to do every day sort of thing to be successful. So if you're having the most fun when you're doing the building and new stuff, how do you get excited and push through the other parts?
I feel like that's the whole thing in E-Myth, right? You have to have that balance of these three personalities. And I think that you just have to grind. You have to know that's the thing about being an entrepreneur. You have to be consistent and you have to gut check yourself. Like, at least for me, like you have to be consistent. And so you have to develop routines and you have to develop systems in your life that make sure that you're set up for success. And then you just got to show up every single day. You got to show up.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the most important thing. It's like 3:30 a.m. I'm up baking because that's the thing. Being consistent, that's where it all happens. That's where the magic happens is just showing up.
I love it. If you had to start over again in business, what would you do?
I got that opportunity, which is really cool. I got the opportunity to start over. I think if I hadn't had that opportunity, though, I don't know that I would completely start over. I think it's just always evolving. I think it's like always adapting, always evolving, always stepping outside and looking in and changing things. I mean, don't get too emotionally connected to anything. I think it's fun because you're playing with stuff. You're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and you just get rid of what doesn't work. And I think as long as you're open to growing and you're open to developing yourself, that there's nothing you can't figure out as long as you're just always open to changing, you know?
All right. And then what's the best advice you've ever got?
Fail often. Just keep failing and then just keep picking yourself back up and trying again. Because lots of people fall out with the failure. We're all failing. Like just keep failing over and over and over again. Whether you call it failure or you call it experience or whatever it might be, just do it over and over and over and over again.
Absolutely. That's great. Now, as we wrap up here, where does the name is interesting. Sprinkle Me Sugar. Where does that come from?
So when I was trying to think of what to name it, it's when I was a stay-at-home mom with little twins and they were about 1 year old. And I was just thinking about the whole point of it was to spread joy. And I was thinking about, again, like going back to the idea of like taking basic ingredients and making them into something magical, something different. It feels like alchemy almost, but it's like being able to, like a little kid and that like innocence of, mommy, what are you baking? Like, give me some. And I was just thinking about Sprinkle Me Sugar. It was just a cutesy kind of way to identify that thing of like I want a little bit of that, like joy, that experience.
At this point, so we typically ask some of the other entrepreneurs who've been doing this much longer what they hope their legacy would be. But I want to ask you, what do you hope the future is going to be for Sprinkle Me Sugar? You're building and planning, and you enjoy that. What are you looking forward to? What's coming up?
Well, right now, I am excited about starting the first macaron vending machine franchise in the world, and that that's what we're building right now.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
That's really cool.
Giving people an opportunity at entrepreneurship that
Yeah.
might not be able to afford. It's low cost entry, high profit.
Mm-hmm.
It would allow people to be able to have that sense of freedom in their own lives and financial freedom, to be able to invest in something like this, and making that easy for people.
Because not everybody has a local sitting here.
Yeah, not everyone has a local, or not everyone even wants to necessarily be an entrepreneur, but they might want a little taste of that freedom, that financial freedom of not just having their 9 to 5, but having like something growing money for them. And so that's what we're building on and working on.
That's super exciting. Well, Raina, thank you so much. If people want to keep up with your journey about the exciting things that you're doing, where should they kind of keep in contact with you or follow you at?
Yeah, you can follow me on Facebook at Sprinkle Me Sugar Bakery. You can follow me on Instagram at sprinkle.me.sugar, because a person won't sell me Sprinkle Me Sugar handle. And then on LinkedIn at Sprinkle Me Sugar as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin. This was awesome.
Thank you for listening to 40 by 45, the West Tennessee Business Podcast. This series is produced by Adelsberger Marketing, directed, recorded, and edited by Eric Archer, branding by Katie Howerton, motion graphics by Ricky Santos, and it is produced and hosted by me, Kevin Adelsberger. If you are interested in creating a podcast for your business, connect with us at adelsbergermarketing.com. Subscribe to 40 by 45 on your favorite podcast platform for future episodes, and thank you again for listening.